recorded and are subject to delayed broadcast on the Council's website. In terms of the Sudarian, if you hear your name, could you confirm your attendance, please? Councillor Maitland? Here. Provost Todd?
Here.
Councillor Friel?
Yes, Julie Ellen, I'm here, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Friel. Councillor Cowan?
Here.
Councillor Mackay?
I'm sorry, can I come in here? I've just sent
Yep.
her the link. She didn't seem to have the link, so I've just forwarded it on to her, okay? So she should be
That's
there.
Thanks, Councillor Holland. I'll keep an eye out for her coming in. Councillor Barton?
Yep, here my lonesome.
Councillor Holland?
Here, thanks.
We have an apology this morning from Councillor Lennox. Councillor Crawford?
Yeah.
Councillor Watts?
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Filson? I can see him on the call. Councillor Filson, can you hear us okay?
Yes, fine, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hogg? Yep, you're on mute, Councillor Hogg. I can
That's
see
me.
you. Yep. Thank you.
Champion, thank you.
And Councillor Stewart?
I'm here, Lynn, thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Mackay?
Yes, thank you, I'm here.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lynn. I now call for any declarations of interest. No hands? Okay, thank you. Now I'll go over to Lynn to explain the hearing procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the hearing this morning, it will begin with the Chief Governance Officer or his representative giving an overview of the application. The objectors will then present their objections to the committee in support of their previously written objections. Members of the committee may ask questions of the objectors on the submissions made. Members, please note that this is not to be taken as an opportunity to comment on the merits or otherwise of the planning application. The applicant and all their agents will then address the committee in support of the application, and members will then have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant on the submissions made. Again, members, please note that this is not to be taken as an opportunity to comment on the merits or otherwise of the planning application. At this stage, the hearing will then close. Officers attending the meeting today will give appropriate clarification on any matters which have been raised during the hearing, and members will then move to determination. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, everybody. We have 4 people present today, and we have 3 people going to speak. 4 people going to speak, and I plan to allocate 5 minutes each to every person, if that's okay, and we'll be quite gentle with the reminders of the timing, and we won't cut you off in mid-flow. Okay, so going to go over to Fiona just now, who's going to take us through the paper. Oh, I better just take the paper out. Hold on a second. And it's item number 3. It's planning application number 22/0602/PP. And this is an application for planning permission for erection of 2 detached dwellings at land west of 23 Anderson Drive, Darvel, East Ayrshire. And that's on your pages 5 to 33. Over to Fiona. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, everybody. The application before us today is for a decision for a local planning application, which has received more than 10 objections and therefore requires to be determined by committee. The application site comprises an area of land at Anderson Drive in Darvel, which is located within a residential area. The application site is surrounded by residential properties in varying styles, and the land is identified as safeguarded open space in the relevant part of the development plan, which comprises the East Ayrshire Local Development Plan adopted in 2017. As noted in the report, the current application site was provided as public open space in the planning consent for 75 houses granted to Salveson Homes Limited on the 21st of October 1976. Provision of the landscaped public open space was to ensure a high level of residential amenity for the associated residential development. The applicant proposes to construct 2 detached residential dwelling houses facing onto Anderson Drive with vehicle access also onto Anderson Drive. Further details on the size and design of the properties are within your report, starting at paragraph 9. I can just turn to the screen. Hopefully we'll go through a few slides and hopefully it'll work okay for me in terms of technology. If you can, here we go, I think it's catching up with me. Here's the red line application site just in here, members. You'll see the Anderson Drive residential estate, which takes you onto Bracecourt Avenue and Hillview Road. You'll see just in relation to, obviously, we have the settlement of Darvel and we have the A71 to the south of the site, which is the main road. A little bit more detail. You have the red line application site in here, facing onto Anderson Drive, and you can just see in a bit more detail the residential layout of the estate as a whole. Okay, these are the applicant's plans. These are the existing block plan, where you can see just the blank area, and then you can see 2 residential properties there, one here and one here. And then obviously Anderson Drive to the front, facing onto the properties opposite. These are details of the design, and you'll see comments about the design of in the report, members, in terms of the evaluation of the application, and we'll touch on that later as well. But just for the moment, that's the design. So that's your front elevation, side, and rear. Internal layout for you, members: ground floor, first floor in the middle, and second floor plan there. So you can see that it's a 3-storey property. Some photos, members, just generally of the surrounding area and obviously the application site. This is just Anderson Drive looking up the hill. This is the application site here, members, the area of green grass, residential property behind, and I think that's Bracecourt Avenue just as it starts in there, and you'll see just Anderson Drive as it heads up the hill. Application site to your left of the screen, members. Looking back down the hill, members, just as Anderson Drive starts to come round the bend, start going up the hill. That's looking back down the hill, members, from just the very back of the application site. You can see the timber fence there onto the property behind. That's looking directly opposite the site to the bungalows opposite, members, from within the application site. That's opposite the site at the front. And here, as usual, we tend to put up the local development plan settlement map. So you can see here's the Darvel settlement. You can see the black line here representing the boundary of the town settlement. You can see just within the circular area here, members, you can see the red line site. I've got a plan just on the next screen which shows you that area just in a little bit more detail, which hopefully will come up now. So you can see that there, members, that's the area there. It's coloured in green, and if you look at the key that's on the map, you'll see that it's safeguarded open space. And you'll see the other areas within Anderson Drive, members, that are also safeguarded areas of open space at Hillview Road, Bracecourt Avenue, and the 2 areas on Anderson Drive as well, other than this site here, and the little bit of piece of land to the north that is identified as blue in the plans, but is out with the red line application site. I'm going to stop presenting the screens to you, and with any luck, members, you can ask me to go back if you want to throughout the process. It's not a problem. Okay, turning back to the report, Scottish Power, ARA Flooding and Scottish Water have no objections. East Ayrshire Council's outdoor services do object as per paragraph 12 of your report. Outdoor services object to the loss of the protected area of open space and note that this would result in a loss of amenity space, and outdoor services also note the trees within the vicinity. We have received 20 individual representations to the proposal, all objecting to the application, and we do not have any letters of support. All objections are summarised in your report and they're also responded to. In brief, the headings of the objections focus on the layout and the design, privacy overlooking and overshadowing, a general amenity, green space protection, trees and wildlife, and traffic matters. As noted in the report, the application is not in accordance with policies OP1, INF 6 and Res 11 Part 2 for the following reasons. OP1, the proposal fails to comply with a number of criteria. This policy, including the loss of open space, design in respect of the houses being overbearing in massing and out of keeping with the surrounds, adversely affecting neighbouring property. INF 6, where there is a proposal against development for other uses of locally important areas of amenity open space, to which the proposal is also contrary. In this regard, it's safeguarded open space. Policy Res 11 Part 2 contains a presumption against the development of other areas of locally important areas of amenity space. In terms of material planning considerations, they do not support the application. They don't warrant setting aside the provisions of the development plan. The amenity and character of the neighbourhood would be adversely affected by this residential development with the loss of a locally important area of open space. Noting the level of representation, it's very clear that residents in surrounding homes value the contribution this open space makes to their ambience, amenity and general enjoyment of their homes. The consultation response from Outdoor Services echoes these concerns. The design of the proposed dwelling houses is in stark contrast to the surrounding 1.5 and 2-storey dwellings, being 2.5 storeys in height, and will not in design terms be complementary or assimilate well with the existing design in Anderton Drive. And you've also seen the bungalows as well, members, in Anderton Drive in the photographs. The proposal is considered to be contrary to Scottish planning policy, as it does not fully support the principles of sustainable development, supporting good design and the 6 qualities of successful places. The application is not supported by the National Spatial Strategy of NPF4, which is a revised draft, in relation to sustainable places and livable places. I'd also note the planning histories and material planning consideration in the vicinity to you members in paragraphs 45 and 44 in the report, noting past planning applications for residential development in this estate on areas of strategic green space dealt with by the then Northern Local Planning Committee, and applications were refused on open space grounds. I would advise members in conclusion that the planning system seeks overall the right development in the right location. The planning system effectively advocates sustainable development. If we consider SPP as Scottish planning policy, it seeks exactly that, in that we want to guide development to the right location for future growth and work in the overall public interest. This development is the wrong development in the wrong location. It does not seek to protect the area of safeguarded open space. It doesn't protect the residential amenity of nearby homes, and it isn't appropriate in this location. It has many significant deficiencies and issues which do not add up to a sustainable form of development. It is therefore recommended for refusal, subject to the reasons detailed in your papers in Appendix 1, and I'll just get you a wee page number. Starting at page 30. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Fiona. We'll now proceed to the hearing. And the first person who wishes to speak on the list,
Stuart Clark.
Mr. Stuart Clark. Would you like to come forward, and Robert will set you up with a microphone. Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, no worries. I'm 12 Braescott Avenue, so I'm pretty much right next to the green space as well. I wanted to buy that piece of land that's been on and off the market for probably 12 to 15 years at varying different prices. It's went as little as probably £4,000 or £5,000. I briefly spoke to somebody in the council. It was just a phone call to planning. It was just a lady, I didn't get her name, and she says I basically wouldn't even be able to put a fence round that if I'd bought it because of the open green space, etc., etc. So for that reason, I didn't buy it. Now, for £5,000, if I wanted to turn a good profit, I would build 2 houses myself. So I don't see why somebody can just turn up out the blue and say, well, we're going to stick 2 houses up there, when, you know, it's such a steal, if you like. My kids play in that bit of grass. I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old in the summer. We play there. And I was told basically that's what it was. It was green, open green space, never be able to build in it. That was just the nature of it. And I think a lot of times when people see those bungalows, which are built out with the Salvesen buildings, they were originally built on the tennis court of the big house, which is Mr. Grant and Mrs. McNaughton, the horsey lady. I think a lot of people who buy that piece of land don't know that. They just see 2 different bungalows to the original scheme and think, well, that's a steal, we'll buy that for 10 grand and then we'll stick a couple of houses up there and make a healthy profit of it. Also, there's a online thing with the council arguing with Mrs. McNaught over the years, the last couple of years, because she bought the green space on the corner and then put her horses in it. There's a big document online, 50 pages, I believe, of to and fro between the council, which I think the council won. And basically, she was told that she couldn't change the use of that because it was guarded green space, and that was really the end of it. So as I say, I think it's not right at all that that open green space is used for houses like that. As I say, also the company, I don't know anything about the company. They're not a big name. I don't know them. According to Company's House, they're quite a new company. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that's pretty much all I've got to say, really. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr.
No worries.
Clark. Thank you. Questions? Any questions?
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark. Sorry.
Sorry, I don't know if there is any, there's none online.
Members, any questions for Mr. Clark? No,
No.
I think you're okay, Mr.
Fine.
Clark. Thank you. Mr. Collins. And the same procedure again, 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
I've lived just diagonally across the road from this space for nearly 40 years now. I'd like to just read a couple of sentences from the deeds to our house. It says here, whereas we are to designate and form within our said development certain areas in accordance with local authority requirements for use as children's play area and open public space for the common use of the proprietors in the said development. My children and now my grandchildren play in that space. There are other issues about the houses. Stuart's already mentioned some of these. Right against the fence to that, there's a cottage, which basically would be blanked out completely if there was houses built in it. It's the only side where any light gets into the cottage. We recognise that behind us, the other side of our houses in Anderson Drive, there is a potential site for houses within a field. That would mean that we'd be looked in on both sides, and these places, these houses would be built very close to us. You can see the size of the site. I don't know how they're going to squeeze a three-storey house into it anyway, but the biggest issue is basically this was meant to be a green space, which we have used and will always continue to use, and everybody in that area does use it. Children play in it, and I don't see how somebody can just come along and stick up a house in it, basically. That's pretty much, Stuart's kind of laid out that anyway, so that's as much as I need to say, I think.
Thank you very much indeed. Could you switch me a second to see if anybody has any questions? Any questions? No, Mr. Collins, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed. Next, we have Alistair Craig. And is your son speaking with you as well, Alistair? Or? Yes, okay. Right. Thank you. And again,
Yeah.
Gentlemen, would you like 5 minutes each or 5 minutes?
No, just
5 minutes. Fine. Okay, just want you to have the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, I stay at 23 Anderson Drive, straight across from the development. Been up there for 42 years since it was built, and it's in my title deeds too that the green belt and the below houses ever built on it. I brought up my children, my grandchildren have always played on it, along with a lot of other kids in the development, like, and I think it'd be a great loss to them. And they said, as John says, there's a development right behind their house, which the planning, as far as I know, has been passed on it for about 36 houses. It's been like that for quite a few years now. So there's only one road into the scheme and one road out. So if that other development goes ahead too, the traffic and the site's got to be a bit hectic, to say the least. Like, but my biggest objecting is it's the height of the houses. 2.5, I mean, I stay in a bungalow. The 2 bungalows are straight across the road from, like, and to look into a 2.5 story house, it's going to be a bit of an eyesore. And the small bungalow that stays behind the fence where houses are getting built, that'll never see daylight because the height of the house is right in front of it, because I've got trees right around the other side of the house. I hate to think what the outlook would be for her getting at the end of the day, like. As I don't see how it's been knocked back so often and all of a sudden it comes back on again. You think it'd been knocked back because they couldn't have build on it. Why is it keep coming up and keep coming up? Is it just rules and regulations nowadays they can keep applying?
Aye, is that okay? I say I'm John Craig. I
Stayed there.
I've stayed there for 26 years of my life. I say it's more the look of the house. I'm a quantity surveyor with a civil engineering company, so I know what's involved with like housing developments and stuff like that. But to build a 2.5 story house straight across for like 2 bungalows and with a wee cottage in behind, I mean, that wee cottage is surrounded by trees 40, 50 foot high. It's not just like wee conifer trees, it's massive trees, and it would never see the light of day. And just back to the developers, I've had a look in company's house, and it's just a wee bit of a concern about the amount of history within their company house. I mean, they were actually, I think, going to get struck off the register at one point due to lack of history. Now, are these guys going to just get the planning for these houses and sell the ground off as ground with planning, or are these guys going to actually take on the development themselves? It's just a wee bit of a concern that. No, it is. So, but as I say, it's my kids playing a bit of grass. I've played in a bit of grass, and as I say, with these 6 green spaces on, like say, Mr. Collins and my dad's title deeds for all the years, it's like, and with the field behind my dad's house having planning permission passed for 36 houses, what's the need for these 2 houses? It's like, it's and with 2.5 story, it's just going to look an eyesore.
It's been everything on the site, not right.
So yeah.
Thank you very much, James. Over to you, members. Do you have any questions? No questions. No questions. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have the wrong glasses with me today. You'll have to excuse me. I'm a bit annoyed at myself, right? So Pamela McKinnon, would you like to come forward? And again, Pamela, 5 minutes. Thank you.
I live at 21 Anderson Drive, so I'm also directly across from the proposed development. I'm a new resident. I just moved here last year, and one of the reasons for choosing that area was the family feel. It's very open. It reflects the town itself, which is surrounded by the countryside, and it seems very rural. And to have this green space across from where I live is just wonderful. To see everyone using it on a daily basis is also fantastic. It doesn't just sit there. I'm also concerned, as everyone else has said, about the size of the dwellings. I don't think they're in keeping at all with the area. And I'm also concerned about the increase in traffic. I understand that there's, I think it's three cars per house. So that could be 6, could be more, depending how many members of the family have cars. If there's 5 bedrooms, could be up to 10 cars. So I'm also worried about the increase in traffic.
Sorry, members, any questions? No, thank you. Thank you, Ms McKim. Sorry for the delay there. The applicant is not present today and is not present online. However, they have handed in a statement which we will allow to be read. Thank you.
Members, just before Lynn reads it out, it was just to say I think they've got difficulties this morning in terms of the weather. My understanding is where they are, they've been snowed in, hence the reason they're not physically present today. They were sent a copy of the link, but I understand that they're unable to connect, hence the reason that we've done this before, where the practice is Lynn will now read out their position in relation to the application.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is the statement from the applicant's agent. We would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to address them. Our client has paid the council a substantial fee to process this planning application, and to date, we as agents have not received any correspondence from the planning department, nor given the opportunity to discuss or address any of the issues raised. With the exception of the matter of protected open space, all other material considerations could easily be addressed if we were afforded the opportunity to discuss these. We would ask that the committee not consider these points when considering the application, as these can be addressed with changes to the design, scale, etc. With regard to the original planning consent in 1976, the report refers to this space being designated as open space. Can the council please explain why there were 2 further houses built on and, of course, afforded planning consent by the authority on the adjacent site? This is formed on the central section of the original strip of open space. A precedent has already been set by these 2 older developments, and refusal of this application would be unfair on our client, who is being offered the same opportunity as the neighbouring properties. Darville is a village and surrounded by open space. It also has several open green spaces within its boundaries, and we do not believe that this small development of 2 houses would have a detrimental effect on the area. In fact, it could be argued that this development will introduce much needed housing to the area. We have visited the site several times and seen anyone using the ground, and there was no evidence that it is used regularly. In fact, a sign has been erected stating no ball games. This is a strange approach from a council and community allegedly encouraging children to use open space. There is a section of the site which will be left as open green space and potentially could be gifted to the community. Local authorities can, of course, designate in the local plan any privately owned land as they see fit and ultimately control its development. Should the council insist that this is a crucial part of this area and must be protected for use of the public, then they should arrange to purchase these areas which will remain in private ownership. If this application were to be refused, it is our view that the council will be acting unfairly towards our client, as the local authority have previously allowed 2 houses to be built on this ground, and we have not been afforded the opportunity to discuss any of the issues. Our client has confirmed that they would appeal a refusal and propose to recover all costs involved. Thank you, Chair.
Obviously, that's the hearing closed, as we cannot ask the applicant any questions at this stage. So we're going to go over to Fiona to answer some of the issues raised. And Fiona, are you ready to report? Just give it a couple of minutes here. Sorry for the delay, there was quite a lot of information to take in there.
Chair, if it perhaps helps in the interim while Fiona's just gathering our kind of last few thoughts on the matter, there's a couple of matters maybe for myself that I'd maybe just want to kind of clarify for members. There's a couple of things I would maybe clarify based upon not only I think what the members of the public who are objectors have said, but also in relation to one of the matters raised by the applicant in their statement. Although I'm conscious planning colleagues may want to come in on other matters, particularly round about this issue about another site they're referring to. The points I just wanted to clarify were, first of all, the issue I think was raised by one of the objectors about the history of the company who is the developer for this. And what I would say is whether or not any planning permission which may or may not be granted and its ability to be implemented by this developer or not is not a material planning consideration. So for the purposes of today's whether or not, depending where your deliberations take you to, if planning permission in general terms were to be approved or granted, then it's not a material consideration whether or not ultimately this developer or any other developer would be able to build out the site. The second thing I just wanted to raise was in connection with precedent. Precedent does not apply in planning law. So what we have to, however, consider is applying planning policy consistently. So it was just to kind of raise that I know the applicant in their statement was saying there is precedent, but it was just to make absolutely clear that precedent does not have a place in planning law or practice. What it does is that we ensure members as the committee that you apply the planning policy and the planning law in a consistent manner, irrespective of the application.
Thank you, Craig. Fiona, are you ready to reply?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Chair. Apologies, I was just trying to open a mapping system and it was taking just a few minutes too long there. Okay, just to run through a couple of bits and pieces. I think Craig has probably covered quite a lot of what I had to say, particularly in terms of precedent and other matters. I didn't catch all of what Craig said because I was trying to open up a couple of things on the machine. So bear with me if I cover off. Mr. Clark referred to the piece of land, the green space to the south. I've shared my screen. I don't know if you can see, but it's this area in here that was referred to for horse with the horses. That was a separate matter. It was dealt with through the enforcement process with the service of an enforcement notice that was appealed to DPEA, which is the Scottish Government Appeal Service, and that was and the enforcement notice was upheld, and I believe that matter is now resolved. I'm just having a look. In terms of the company matters, there have been a couple of objectors mentioned matters about the company details. Those are not material planning considerations. They are matters out with the planning process, so we can't take that into account. I do note what the members of the public and objectors were saying, but unfortunately this is not a planning matter. We're looking at the use of land, the design, etc. Let me just look and scan through my points. We have included reasons for refusal relative to the impact on the house behind, relative to the impact on privacy, overlooking, etc., and general amenity. And Craig, did you cover title deeds as well, just about not being material matters? Okay. Points in title deeds about the use of land are not material planning considerations. That's not to say that they aren't right. They are matters in law, matters in the title deeds of property. In terms of planning, we have to apply planning policy. Planning policy is in line with what the title deeds say, but the title deeds per se themselves are not a material planning consideration because they are private title deeds and they're a legal matter. That said, the planning history does reflect what the title deeds say in terms of the fact that the surrounding areas of green space are retained as public open space safeguarded for that purpose. The objectors also referred to land to the rear of the houses, and this is this field in here. I hope you can see with the cursor. There was planning permission granted quite a long time ago. That consent has never been implemented, and I don't have any further details on it, but it is a housing land a land for housing development in the local development plan. I don't have any further details to hand about the application, but it was granted quite a long time ago. I don't know if the consent's still live or not, but that said, it is a land, it is identified for residential purposes in the local development plan. Just looking through, Craig, you covered precedent as well, so I really don't need to go into that because Mrs McKinnon, I think, raised general amenity issues to do with the use of the land, how residents enjoy it, etc. And that's all reflected also in our report. And that's why one of the reasons we're obviously recommending refusal of the application as per the reasons on page 30. In terms of the applicant's statement, Craig has covered precedent, as I've said. We have the applicant's agent did make comment at the start of his statement regarding the fact that he's not received any communication or correspondence from us. We have assessed the application as it's been put forward to us. That's what we're here to do. If we felt that changes, etc., would have been appropriate to the application, we would have come back. But we have assessed the application and its supporting information on the basis of what's before us, which is what we're here to do. We do have a pre-application service that we offer. It's on our website. We do go back to people pre-application and say to them, if you want to come and talk to us, please do so. Here's our service. There was no pre-application on this application, which obviously we have there should people wish to avail themselves of it. So we have assessed the application on the basis of which has been given to us. And I don't particularly think I have anything else. I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to come back in if required.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Yes, would you like to come back in?
No, he's getting a glass of water.
Oh, sorry, I thought that's right. The water's free. I beg your pardon.
No, no.
Well, I've just realised I can't let anybody back in at this stage. Okay, sorry about that. So it's over to.
It's questions from members.
It's questions from members or the officers at this point. Does any members have any questions?
Councillor Stewart.
Councillor Stewart?
Just to put it into perspective for me, height-wise, so what height would the bungalow be and what height would these 3-storey buildings be? What kind of difference in height would that show, if I'm allowed to ask that?
Certainly, Elaine, we'll just get an answer for you, thank you. And then after that, we'll have Councillor Jim Todd.
You are indeed obviously allowed to ask Councillor Stewart. Unfortunately, I don't actually have dimensions on me, I'm afraid, other than just the fact, the general height. I'm just having a wee look in the report to see if there's any details in terms of dimensions, but there doesn't appear to be in terms of the height of the properties. There will be a fair significance in terms of scale, because obviously properties are single storey, as you've seen in the photographs. And if you think of a fairly typical 2-storey property with obviously roof space accommodation with a fairly steep pitch, it will be fairly substantial, but unfortunately I can't give you dimensions at the moment. I do apologise because I don't have them in the report.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, Elaine. Is that enough information for you to visualise? Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Todd.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks very much, Fiona. Could you kindly put that last map up that you had, the plan of the site, if you don't mind? And I take it that the applicant was referring to the two new, well, relatively new builds immediately where your cursor is, immediately below the red outline. Now, is that the application that they're referring to that was built on the green space previously? And if so, when were those houses given planning permission and when were they built?
Apologies, Councillor Todd, I actually forgot to cover that in my summary. So thank you very much for raising it just now, and apologies. I'm assuming it's those two plots. The applicant hasn't given us any more information other than what he's said in his statement. So it's the first I'm aware of that point. I'm assuming it's those two areas. That's one of the reasons why I actually took longer to come back in, because I was trying to open our internal mapping process. Now, the mapping system that I have on my PC records applications that we've had going back to 1996 or thereabouts, certainly 96, 97. I have no record of any applications on that land for those properties. going back to 96, 97, which means it must be a fairly older, it must be a much older consent. Now we've gone through several iterations of the local plan since then, so certainly if they were built, they could have been built under different policy, etc. So ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, they're not covered. It's not a relevant matter as such to this application that would make us change our mind in a recommendation to you. But certainly I can't find the planning history for that, which means it must be a much older application, because there's nothing in my database at the moment showing me that.
No, that's very helpful, Fiona, and I'm sure one of the objectors can tell us when those houses were built, if they can get back in at some point. But you've cleared that up for me. I agree, it's out with any mitigation in terms of timescale. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. Councillor Mackay.
Yes, thank you very much. That really was the point that I was interested in, and I'm clear about that, and I'm clear about the recommendation. Thank you. That is before us, and minded to accept that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Councillor Hogg, please.
Hi, good morning. Could I just clarify, this area of ground is not involved in any local development plan currently?
Sorry, Councillor Hogg, could I just double check? Do you mean the application site or the two houses
Yes.
to the south?
The application site.
The application site is safeguarded area of open space, and that's what we are saying that the land is suitable for in the local development plan. We're not saying it's suitable for residential development. We're saying it's public open space and it should be safeguarded for future use as such.
Okay, thank you
And
so much.
also LDP2, as it comes forward, has also got that area safeguarded open space. Local Development Plan 2 was up at council just the other day, so we are currently going to be bringing that forward as part of recommendations as we move forward. It's not in this report because this report predated yesterday's decision of the council, but it will be as part of LDP2 safeguarded open space as well.
Thank you. You preempted my second question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. Just 1 second, please. We have no further questions, and apologies, I couldn't let you back in while we were going through this part of our proceedings. Okay, thank you. So, okay, we're now going to move to determination. I see hands up by Councillor Hogg and Councillor Mackay. I'm assuming they're legacy. Just want to make sure.
Oh, sorry, not legacy. Thank you.
Sorry, Maureen.
Thank you. I'd like to move the refusal of the planning application in line with the recommendations attached at Appendix 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mackay. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Barton. Thank you very much. Anyone otherwise minded? Nope. So that's us moved for refusal as recommended. Thank you. Over to Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. The decision of the committee is that the application has been refused for the reasons detailed in the report. Thank you, Chair.
I'd just like to say thank you to our guests today. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the this morning's planning if you wish to do so. Thank you very much. Okay, members, we go over to the second part of today's proceedings. And that's item number 4, planning application number 22002/S3 6VAR. And I'm not going to read everything that's under there because I'll lose my voice by the time I get to the end. So we'll just proceed. Thank you.
Chair, can I just come in there, please?
Certainly, Drew.
Just to make a wee declaration, it's no, I don't think it's any significance. Maybe Craig can tell me anyway. Page 6, page 46, paragraph 72 does mention my property in it, but it's just for public water supply. I don't think it's any significant that would stop me actually taking part, but I just thought I would I declare that, Chair. Maybe Craig could advise.
Through you, Chair, I think you mentioned page 46, Councillor Filson. At the end of the day, what we need to do is look at section 5 of the code to see whether you have any connection with a particular application and whether that connection is of such a nature that essentially a member of the public sitting at the back of the room could take the view that, you know, you've predetermined the application or you have, you know, certain views regarding it. Clearly, if your property, you know, is impacted by the application, you know, there may be a suggestion here that the connection is of such an extent that you may require to declare that interest and unfortunately step out of this application. But I'm conscious at the end of the day, obviously, the duty is incumbent on yourself, Councillor Filson, to determine whether or not you're making that declaration or whether you have a connection, but the connection is such that it wouldn't impact as the kind of other route that you can take. But certainly if your property may be impacted by this development in the circumstances adopting the precautionary approach, you may wish to consider declaring and then removing yourself. Does that help?
It does, Craig. I don't think it's an impact, but I think maybe I'll just step down because there are two councillors for the wards there anyway. So okay.
That's fine, Drew. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, we're moving on to David, who's going to present the paper. David Wilson, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Morning, members. If you bear with me a second, I'll just share my screen at the start and talk you through what's proposed with this application. Thanks, members. The purpose of this report is to present a consultation under section 36C of the Electricity Act 1989. This consultation relates to a variation of an existing consent granted by Scottish ministers for the North Kyle wind farm, which was granted in December 2021. North Kyle wind farm comprises of 49 turbines up to 149.9 metres in height, with associated infrastructure located off the B741 road to the west of New Cumnock and north east of Dunmellinton. You can see that on the screen there as the layout, the basic application layout. And that is the proposed development there. You see the wind farm occupying the red line site there. The variation seeks a small number of changes as set out at paragraph 13 of the papers. The slide that's in front of you at the moment demonstrates the changes that are being proposed. These principally comprise of changing the location of two turbines by 170 metres and 190 metres respectively, and that is fairly centrally located on that screen. You can see the right near movement of turbine 25 by 190 metres, which is here, and movement of turbine 13 by 165 metres, which is just here. The revised locations are just shown in pink, with the previous locations just shown in black as they were there, so relatively close to where they were before. There's also proposals for the reconfiguration of the substation arrangement, which is on the eastern, it's on the southern part of the site there. So moving temporary compounds and so on from different parts of the site. And there's also revisions to some of the access track locations. So you see, for example, in this location here, the pink section is the revised section connection turbines 52 and 53. These changes have largely resulted from further and more detailed site investigation since consent was first granted. In addition, the developer seeks an extension to the operational period from 25 years to 40 years. So you'll see on the screen at the moment, I've just went through some small number of those changes, but my explanation largely covers the extent of it. In reality, they're relatively limited changes in relation to the size of the development that has consent. And the turbines themselves, although 190 metres sounds like quite a distance, in reality it's not, considering the turbine's 150 metres itself. And the turbines remain within the main body of the site. They're not moving further out to edges of the site. So the environmental information suggests that the effects that were previously found to be acceptable are pretty much the same for these changes, with some minor improvements, with one or two smaller increased impacts, such as a marginal increase in peat and forestry loss, but compared to the development in total, those impacts are negligible. I'll leave that screen just on at the moment, just as I continue through the presentation. Consultation responses are set out from paragraph 15 to 36, noting that there are no objections from any consultee, subject to appropriate planning conditions. An assessment against the development plan is set out from paragraph 38 to 161, noting that the development, with particular regard to the proposed changes, is considered to be compliant with key policies of the development plan, with the changes considered to be negligible in impact from those expected of the consented development. Material considerations are set out from paragraph 162 to 208, which cover a range of relevant documents and matters and which are considered to indicate that the development can draw support from a range of these, and that overall the material considerations do not indicate the application should be refused. Legal and financial risk implications are set out at paragraphs 209 to 217, noting that revisions to Section 69 agreements that are currently being finalised, or otherwise a minute of variation as appropriate, should be sought on the 2 bullet point matters at paragraph 214 to reflect the revised Section 36C application that's in front of us. Conclusions are set out at paragraphs 221 to 228, noting that the proposed variation is considered to be compliant with the development plan and largely supported by other material considerations, subject to appropriate planning conditions and the Section 69 legal agreement amendments. On that basis, it is recommended that no objection is raised to this consultation, subject to the conclusion of the Section 69 legal agreements and the attachment of the same planning conditions, subject to relevant variations to reflect the changes proposed in this application, all as noted at paragraphs 2 and also 229 of the papers. Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, David. And just for your information, recommendations are on page 75 of your papers. And just opening it up for questions, Maureen.
Thanks very much, Chair. And it's not a question, I suppose it's just a procedural matter. I just want to make sure that we get things absolutely right here. I understand that Councillor Filson had indicated that he was withdrawing. I see that he's still on the chat. Could you just confirm? I just want to make sure that we don't make any mistakes, that's all.
Thanks, Councillor Mackay. Yes, I can confirm that Councillor Filson has withdrawn from the meeting and is no longer participating and is offline.
That's super. Thanks ever so much, Chair.
Thank you, Maureen. Any questions from other members or clarifications? I don't see any. Does anyone want to move the recommendations? Councillor Barton, and is Councillor, is that Billy?
I'm happy, yeah.
Oh, I got Billy first, sorry there. Councillor Crawford, thank you. Anybody otherwise minded? No, that's us. Then I'll just go over to Lynn for clarification, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. The decision of the committee is that the council raised no objection to the proposed variation development, subject to the conclusion of the Section 69 legal agreement and the attachment to the deemed planning permission of the same planning conditions as the Section 36 consent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and thank you everyone for this morning. That concludes not just us, but I think the end of the official meetings for this school term. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.